My name is Marjorie Lom, at 68. I was packing away summer dresses into a faded blue valise, murmuring a half-remembered melody from the radio, when the telephone shattered the comm. I was set to depart for Maine the next day, my first true getaway since Robert, my husband, had slipped away. The condo was spotless, plants quenched, every detail in order for once, no cause for concern. The caller was Ellen, my daughter-in-law. Her voice quivered the instant I answered. Mom, trust me tonight. Install a concealed camera in the living room and leave, no questions. Just go, for a heartbeat. I suspected a prank. Ellen was measured and courteous, not given to theatrics, yet her breaths came ragged, born of dread, not anxiety. What on earth do you mean? I pressed. I can't explain now, she urged. Just do it. Trust me. And don't breathe a word to Caleb, my son's name lodged in my throat. I forced a chuckle to dismiss the absurdity, but it fractured instead. Ellen murmured, please. It'll make sense tomorrow. Then silence. I stood clutching the receiver, the refrigerator's low drone swelling in the void. Through the pane, Charleston's dusk painted the harbor in amber. The instant felt displaced, as if I'd wandered into another's story. I retrieved the compact camera I'd once used to monitor a neighbor's feline, confirmed its charge, and nestled it behind the bookcase, angled toward the living room. Then I grabbed my handbag, secured the door, and pocketed my keys. By the time I reached the car, my fingers shook. I didn't know what I fled, only that Ellen's terror had been palpable. Charleston's night air hung thick as I crossed the bridge to my sister Rita's enclave. The tide was out, marshes gleaming silver under the moon, each street lamp pulsing like a heartbeat. I couldn't settle. I chided myself for folly, an elderly woman pursuing phantoms in her own fancy. Yet Ellen's plea lingered, keen and quaking. Before departing, I'd positioned the camera on the middle shelf, tipped toward the entrance. Its faint blue glow winked once before I masked it with a book spine, shutting off the lights and latching the door. The bolt's click echoed with finality. To final, Rita's home nestled in a serene cul-de-sac beneath magnolia boughs. She answered before my knock, robe loosely knotted, face drowsy yet intrigued. Marjorie, you mentioned flying tomorrow. I needed to escape tonight, was all I could muster. She didn't probe. That's the bond of sisters. We converse when the chaos subsides. She brewed chamomile tea, redolent of bygone summers, and we perched at her kitchen table in quiet. The clock ticked, the fridge hummed, and I sensed my pulse, constant yet unsteady. Later, in her spare room, staring at the fan casting shadows on the walls, I reached for my phone repeatedly, tempted to view the feed, but I refrained each time, dreading emptiness and more dreading revelation. Somewhere in the gloom, the camera blinked anew, capturing a dwelling I no longer felt was mine. Dawn arrived soft and hushed, a Charleston morning laced with brine and moist timber. Sleep had eluded me. Rita snored gently nearby as I rose and seized my phone. My hands were rigid, as before a tempest. The camera app waited on the screen. I gazed at it long, then activated it. The image stuttered alive, revealing my living room in dim clarity. The wall clock showed past midnight. All appeared as I'd left it: sofa pillows, lamp, draped blanket. For an instant, I sighed, half chagrined at yielding to panic. Then the door swung open. Caleb entered first, my son, in the jacket I'd gifted him last Christmas. Warren, our cousin, followed, and a stranger with a toolbox. The man knelt at the study lock while Caleb and Warren prowled, yanking drawers, scanning shelves. Their murmurs were subdued but audible. "She be away a week," Caleb said. "Ample time to list it," Warren chuckled. "Certain she sign upon return?" "She won't need to. I've managed the papers." Breath failed me. My son's tone was breezy, almost jolly, as if shifting chairs. Not unraveling my world, the locksmith muttered something inaudible, and Caleb answered, "Just need the safe. Deed and accounts are there." Once we settle the debts, it's sorted. Settle the debts, he tossed off, as if erasing decades of faith with a trivial remark. The phrases sank like anchors. I clamped a hand over my mouth, watching him rifle drawers once filled with greetings and snapshots. Each motion was honed, precise, devoid of remorse. They departed as casually as they'd come, the door sealing like a period. I sat rigid in Rita's guest room, phone quivering in my grip. Outside, sunlight crested the marshes, gilding the water. Inside, something fractured silently, sharply, like crystal yielding to strain. The child I'd nurtured lingered in that man's visage, but I could no longer discern him. By mid-morning, Charleston's avenues shimmered in warmth. I lingered in a modest cafe near Meeting Street, fingers encircling a coffee long cooled. I'd phoned Ellen post-footage, voice scarcely firm. She vowed to meet promptly, insisting secrecy. Even from Rita, she arrived disheveled. Hair hastily bound, eyes ringed, blouse creased as if donned in shadow. She slipped into the opposite seat, peering out the window before speaking. I witnessed it too, she said softly. I wasn't sure you'd trust me without proof, my throat constricted. How longed a few weeks, she confessed. Assisting Caleb with business files. I spotted your signature duplicated on power of attorney drafts. To pristine, traced, questioning him yielded evasion. Last week, I overheard him and Warren plotting to sell the condo after relocating you to a cozy spot. Her words wavered. That's when I rang you. I couldn't remain silent. I regarded her, caught between thanks and shock. The space between us seemed brittle, one misstep from ruin. He's your husband, Ellen. I know, she breathed. But this isn't affection, it's panic. She twisted her hands, quaking. He's drowning in debt from a botched venture. Warren pushes for quick fixes, even stealing what's not theirs. I tried intervening, he ignored me. A trolley clanged by outside. Bell resounding, Ellen lifted her gaze. Tears gleaming. I'm sorry, Marjorie. I didn't wed him for this. I thought him nobler. I trusted her. Perhaps her humiliation was too genuine to feign. Or perhaps I craved one a lie in truth. For the first time since that grim dawn, isolation eased. That afternoon, Ellen chauffeured me to a law firm shaded by oaks on Broad Street. The plaque read Pearson Hall away. Elder Law and Estate Services. A spot I'd passed countless times, never imagining need. The lobby carried hints of lemon wax and aged volumes. Mr. Pierce, early 60s, silver-haired, spoke with deliberate calm, each word weighted. He heard me out uninterrupted as I detailed the recording, Ellen's discovery. My son's scheme, his gaze warmed, never veering to compassion, concluding. He clasped his hands, Mrs. Lom. This suggests financial abuse. We'll act swiftly first. An injunction on the title to bar changes during scrutiny. I nodded, striving for pause. He walked me through paperwork, pages thick with legalese blurring in my sight. My name signed repeatedly, injunction, bank freeze on shared access, revocation of the power Caleb had subtly renewed with each stroke of my pen. It resembled severing a lifeline once binding us. Finished, Mr. Pierce aligned the sheaf in a folder. This secures for now, he assured. We'll alert the clerk and bank by dawn. Retain all communications, documents. You're not helpless, Mrs. Lom. You're safeguarding your own. I yearned to trust him, yet safeguarding pissed. It demanded acknowledging peril from my flesh and blood. Ellen lingered by the exit, mute but resolute, rising. My legs wobbled. Mr. Pierce proffered his card. We'll manage discreetly. No clash until you're prepared. Outside, slanting light bathed the cobblestones in gold. I hugged the folder close as we headed to the car. It weighed more than paper should, burdened with evidence. I'd always held family as sanctuary. That day, I grasped the pain of erecting barriers between affection and security and their vital necessity. 2 evenings post-Pierce. Slumber evaded me still. I remained at Rita's, The document packet on the nightstand, pulsing like an extra heartbeat, echoing irreversible shifts. At midnight, I launched the camera app anew. The display illuminated the darkness. Initially, the room lay motionless, sofa lamp, mantel photos, streetlights faint gleam in the glass. Then the door parted. Caleb entered with Warren once more. Their movements were bolder. At ease, Warren bore a clipboard. Caleb's phone torch swept shelves and cupboards. More value than anticipated, Warren jested. Her antiques could have your arrears. Caleb paused before replying. He fingered the porcelain vase from our Savannah 10th anniversary. Catalog everything, he grumbled. Liquidate swiftly before she probes. My throat clenched. I yearned to avert my eyes but couldn't. The lens seized each indifferent act. Caleb rummaging drawers. Warren snapping jewelry shots. The pair negotiating like merchants apportioning goods. Briefly, Caleb halted before my cherished bookcase. His features seemed aged weary for a flicker. I glimpsed the lad who'd pin affection notes to the fridge. Then he pivoted, and that lad vanished. I initiated recording on my phone, preserving the stream with timestamp. Mr. Pierce had instructed archiving. Backups lest the device fail. It was rote yet essential. When the clip concluded, the screen room stilled. I sat wordless, phone heated in my palms. The atmosphere rarefied. Morning brought me to Pierce's office. He viewed the segments intently. Expression firm, sufficient, he declared. We advance tomorrow. Sufficient a modest term for the wreckage of my convictions on love, kin and hearth. Next day, rain had lifted, the city refreshed. I wished the same for my spirit, Mr. Pierce. Rang early voice even, Mrs. Lom, filings confirmed. If prepared, we proceed today. I affirmed readiness knowing it signified resolve not tranquility. No alternative remained. We convened outside my building that afternoon. Air held salt and asphalt. The entry magnolia dripping from overnight. Downpour. Mr. Pierce flanked me with a slim case. Mr. Hanley, the manager, kindly but anxious, clutched a clipboard. Ellen arrived last, sleepless shadows under her eyes. She merely nodded, it sufficed. We ascended together, the corridor seemed constricted. The carpet alien beneath me, unlocking. Voices spilled out, Caleb's muted and strained. Warren's cutting, she won't notice. Just forge when he halted at my sight. Silence stretched, Warren edged toward the sofa. Mumbling retreat, Caleb's eyes darted. Shock battling denial. Mom, he managed, forcing a grin. You weren't due back. No, I replied softly. I wasn't. Mr. Pierce advanced, placing his case on the table, snapping it open. Mr. Lom, I represent your mother. This property is legally shielded. Cease removing or modifying items. Caleb faltered, bewilderment turning to fury. This is madness. She's my mother. I raised my phone, the video aired. His words resounding, liquidate swiftly before she probes. Color drained from him. Mom, it's misunderstood. I've witnessed the truth. I stated, voice unwavering. You invaded my home, ransacked my belongings, sought to seize what your father and I forged. The ensuing hush outweighed any outcry. Even Warren avoided my gaze. Ellen hovered by the door, hands knotted. Tears refracting light. Mr. Pierce compiled papers and extended them to Caleb. Notice of protection and power revocation. Vacate now, management will rekey. Caleb's lips parted soundlessly. He stared, something crumbling behind his rage. Mr. Hanley passed me fresh keys. Chill in my hand. I turned to leave. Ellen shadowing in the hall. My son's first sob escaped raw. Incredulous, belated, I didn't glance back. Some farewells need no utterance. The ensuing weeks flowed like languid currents, inexorable, muted. Gossip rippled through the building swifter than anticipated. Balcony-waving neighbors now averted gazes. At a loss for words, some tendered awkward condolences. Most sidestepped. Charleston savored scandal as much as decorum. And I'd supplied both. Mr. Pierce managed the legalities. Caleb faced scrutiny for attempted fraud. Warren ghosted calls and fled town. Pierce relayed Caleb's admission of error, insisting no intent to hurt merely aid in fiscal realignment. The verbiage was so clinical it nearly nullified the betrayal. Ellen visited one afternoon to return old spare keys. She appeared gaunt, wan, hands unsteady on the counter. "I'm leaving him," she said faintly. "I can't remain after this." I expected guilt, but felt only weariness. Comfort eluded me. Words failed. I brewed tea instead. We sat mutely until she murmured, "I'm sorry, Marjorie, I never envisioned this end." "I know," I replied. "None of us did." Her departure left the apartment cavernously quiet. Rooms were tidy and new, yet vacancy clung like dampness, something to inhale around. I occupied days with minor tasks, rearranging shelves, pruning the ficus, tracing sunlight on the floors. Evenings, I'd strain for Caleb's hall voice. Knowing it absent forever, Rita came frequently, bearing dishes and forced optimism. "You chose rightly," she repeated, as if mantra eased the sting. But right and simple seldom coincided. Nights, I'd rise and gaze over the harbor from the window. City lights danced on waves. Suspending all between loss and latency, security had returned. But serenity hovered afar, awaiting my adaptation to the quiet. 3 weeks on, I boarded the long-delayed flight to Maine. The ticket had lingered on my dresser beneath the weight, as if patient for my need, no longer fleeing, merely honoring a vow to view the sea from novel shores. The journey was tranquil. I strolled rocky coasts at dawn, wind bracing my cheeks, gulls' cries remote and rhythmic. Daily the chest pang softened, yielding to subtler acceptance saw forgiveness's dawn. Uncertain for whom, I read extensively, browsed quaint shops, lingered in cafes where anonymity reigned. When queried on solo travel, I affirmed unashamed. Solitude held liberties I'd never fathomed. One afternoon by the harbor, I penned a check to the South Carolina Elder Support Fund. Per Pierce's suggestion, I inscribed the sum deliberately, figures firming into resolve, not benevolence, transmuting agony into safeguard for another, returning to Charleston. The city felt tempered, air kinder. The apartment welcomed with creaks and lemon scent. Ellen's note awaited in the mail, gratitude for prizing truth over ties. "Be well." I folded and stored it that dusk. I stepped onto the porch. Sun sank beyond the harbor, sky blushing rose and gold. I illuminated the porch light, the bulb that had beckoned family for generations, and lingered, watching its radiance fan the street. This light isn't for waiting anymore. I breathed, it's for peace. If you're watching this video, please give it a like, subscribe to Instant Revenge, and share in the comments where you're hearing this story from. I'd love to know how far it's traveled.